All right. So Tim and I have had the pleasure of probably a decade of selling into businesses. So, the pleasure and the pain possibly. We probably pitched, what do you think, thousands of companies, Tim?
I'd say that's accurate.
Right, probably thousands.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna, pull back the curtain, sit on the other side of the table, and help all of you businesses out there evaluate how to select a vendor for your corporate wellness program. So, the industry might hate us for this. They might not want to speak to us after us kind of sharing this, but also this will put us in the hot seat. So if you ever consider us as an option, you can ask us these questions and get us squirming a little bit possibly to make sure you're getting the best possible solution for your company. So one of the top questions I think that we usually get started with: what are the specific health needs of your organization? I mean, that will define and cut out some of the noise. You have some vendors that are hyper specific on fitness, which is great. Some are on nutrition, some on mental health, but like, what are the needs of your business? And based upon that, then that should help you facilitate what type of vendor solution that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that there has to be a recognition of what the problem you're trying to solve is first, as opposed to just going into it saying this is the hot topic of the year or the month. You got to really understand your employees and understand how you can fully help them. And it's interesting because if you think of employee wellness, you went right to health. And so there's almost like this first step where you have to recognize and believe that the wellness positively impacts the health, and that could dictate what type of vendor you're choosing as well.
Yeah. And also, it's like you said, it's building a solution for no problem. That's like the bane of every entrepreneur's existence. It's like, I built this really cool thing, but no one cares about it. And then what happens? No one actually uses it. You have to really, and you and I have talked about this before, the hair and fire. If your hair is on fire right now with a problem within your organization, if I give you a bucket of sand, you'll dump that bucket of sand on your head and be like, all right, it's not really working, but it's better than nothing. But if I really solve that problem for you with a bucket of water, you'll pay 2 or 3 times that price because it solves the problem you have. So, just making sure you know what the heck you're getting into. I think that also comes down to like one of the trends that I've seen happen more certainly since COVID, is this concept of care washing. So, an organization, their employees are remote, maybe they're bringing them back into the company, and they're going to be all about employee health and well-being and the culture of wellness, but it's so shallow and so fake. And so there's this term, care washing, is that your employees know that, like, they're looking at what you're doing from a leadership perspective, and they're saying, is this genuine or not genuine? So if you're unwilling to commit and really think about this strategically as a strategic pillar of your business about improving the culture and the well-being of your company, your employees are gonna be over by the side at the water cooler talking, saying like, man, these guys just don't know anything about us. And they're pushing this, this gospel, but they don't even believe in it.
Exactly. Well, it's also analogous, I think, to sales. Like you mentioned, the thousands of prospective clients and clients we've worked with. And, how many times have we, like guilty as charged, will create our own problems for our clients in the boardroom. And then you're like assuming that they have that and push the problem they don't even have on them. When if you
Like,
would just
please,
listen, yeah,
please.
please let this be your problem because
Yeah.
we've already solved it. When if you would just listen to them for 5 seconds, you're going to see very common trends and what the problem is, and then you have a solution that can address that.
All right, so let's talk about the next thing that organizations should evaluate. And I would say it's, do you have the resources, the team, internal expertise to do some of the work yourself or to facilitate that vendor selection? Tim and I, we've done this for so long. We worked with big multinationals that have tens of thousands of employees, and multiple employees are focused solely on this task of improving the health and well-being of their employees, the representative employees of the company. And others are just like, they're running in 1,000 other directions and have no time to say, here's the keys, just do what you need to do and help me improve the health and wellness of this company. So that's definitely another consideration you need to make when you're evaluating if a vendor solution is best for you.
Yeah, leave it to the experts, whether it's internal or external. We've come across a lot, when you'll have somebody who isn't an expert and wants to kind of push something that's very important to them personally to all their employees. And, we have to politely tell them it's great that you on this kettlebell and kale program. No, but I mean, it's great that you're into that and that's impacting your health in a positive way. But we don't know if all of your employees are, and actually, we know all of your employees aren't going to
Yeah.
respond to that, or many of them won't. So it just kind of comes down to that level of understanding the needs of the employees, but also allowing experts who've been there, done that, to really help you out. Whether that's internal with hiring either a wellness director, having somebody who has experience with it, or looking to external either consultants or vendors.
Yeah. Do you have the resources and knowledge to make it a success or not? And just like, if you're doing your books or you're running sales, you probably have had some background or experience in doing that task and that job and that strategy before you took it on full hand. So the same concept applies to this. Is like, if it sits on the side of your desk, again, going back to the care washing and other things, your employees will just say it doesn't feel genuine. And you're going to probably get that single digit participation that most vendors dread, but know is probably the inevitability of your program, because they're just checking the box on
Yep.
offering another solution that in
Yep.
2 years from now, you're going to flip out that vendor and do something
Exactly.
else because it just never works.
Yeah, and I think I'll just be upfront. This will be an incognito, shameless plug for Avedon. But you also need to, when we say hire the experts, it doesn't just mean subject matter experts. Like if you as a company were to hire a full-time personal trainer, a nutritionist, and, sleep specialist and, all these things that would address the problem, they're probably not going to be experts in getting your employees to consume that information and more importantly to apply it to their life. And that's where the behavior change comes in so importantly to this whole process.
All right. Next big thing that you should be thinking about, the little Jerry Maguire, show me the money.
Oh,
What is your budget? I mean, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about the $0 wellness program, and you can do it for no money at all. You could go to our website, you could download the actual kit that we're referring to that's packed with resources. But do you have budget or not? And based upon that budget, where do you sit in selecting that vendor? You have everything from, we'd call them the basic programs that would include a fully digital solution, things like that we're doing for Avedon, which would be comprehensive behavior change courses, wellness challenges, everything to get you going, but it's pretty much driven through digital interventions only. And then more of the advanced types of programs, which you'd have health coaches, again, something that we do for our clients as well. And that might include biometric screening. It's going to cost you more money than just the digital only solution. So that's definitely a consideration you have to make when you're evaluating what is the best path for you as a business.
yeah. Start with how important this is to your business. I rarely get into the ROI discussion with clients and prospects because it's very difficult to actually prove with a precise number based on many factors that are inside and outside of our control. Yet I do believe there's a huge return on these programs. And that return might not only be in reduced medical claims through health insurance, it could just be what is the value you place on creating a happier, healthier culture of your employees. And there's a lot of research and data on that which can show, okay, yes, reduced medical claims, great, wellness is attached to that, but in addition, and the thing that's in my mind a straight line to just creating a happier, healthier workforce, yields tons of results from a financial perspective. It's just a matter of what you can and are willing to invest in that.
Yeah. Well, there was a stat that I thought was really interesting from the American Psychological Association. They did a study and they looked at all of the organizations that have launched wellness programs. And what they found is that those employees that participated in wellness programs, you're going to your point about like the ROI or
Yeah.
VOI, which is value on investment,
Yep.
but 60% of employees that participated in wellness programs reported higher job satisfaction, which is crazy. You're not even talking about, I've lost weight, I feel better at work, directly correlated to job satisfaction just by participating in a wellness program, which is absolutely astounding. There is a tremendous amount. I mean, you and I have drank the Kool-Aid hardcore. So we definitely believe in this topic. We definitely believe in the value of doing this. And oftentimes, as you mentioned, it's hard sometimes to get that C-suite to understand that financial return, the ROI, which would be reduce healthcare costs, maybe reduce absenteeism, presenteeism. But you also have the VOI, which is job satisfaction. Are they participating in your all hands calls? Are they referring staff to come in there? How do you value that within your organization and sort of the impact that that can make for your team just by having these types of tools to engage your staff?
Yeah, it's interesting too because the employee satisfaction is only going to be anchored if there's a genuine belief attached to the program for the company. Like I as an employee, I'm not going to be satisfied with my company more if there's a disingenuous program that just checks the box, right? So that's where, it's interesting where I love to hear where those stats are broken down by who the providers are as well, just because like how many of those 60% are part of just a check the box where they're like, okay, this is great. At least my employer cares enough to offer something for me. Or how many are more satisfied when there's genuinely a commitment to a culture of health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if you're, and also too, just to give people some grounding numbers, if you have an organization, roughly 100 employees or less, the average cost that those types of organizations, which are really that small size organizations that are spending on employee well-being programs, is anywhere between that $35 to about $90 of spend. Like that's like the quoted average. The larger the organization, typically the more resources they provide for their employees. It goes back into, are they offering health coaches? Are they doing on-site biometric screenings? Are they doing incentives? And those programs can go up to $300, $500, or even more dollars per employee per year. So it adds up quickly, but those types of resources, the Fortune 500, they typically throw more to recruit and retain employees. But if you are a small business, most of your colleagues out there who are recruiting the same talent that you are, they're trying to get your star salesperson to work for them. They have these programs already. Over 50% of these small businesses have wellness programs already on site for their employees.
Yeah, and I think if you're a small business too, and you already have a vendor in place, make sure that they're producing quality and satisfaction results from the employees, right? Like, I mean, they should be polling the employees every 3 to 4 months and just, how happy are you with the wellness program? And if you're either not getting responses or it's negative, you need to reevaluate where that budget's going to. And if they can't provide you with that simple information, it might be time to evaluate things.
All right. So next good question to ask when you're sitting across from a vendor is, how do you define success? Now, spoiler alert, I would suggest you have this answer yourself before you meet with that vendor, because in all likelihood, your definition of success might be quite different than their definition of a success. And we see this all the time. Do you want to measure clicks and views? Or do you want to measure, as Tim mentioned, behavior change, health improvements, people changing their lives? Like that's the juicy stuff, at least from, our biased opinion in the space out there. So have that written down, what you and your leadership team will think about. If this program were to be successful, how would we say this to our organization and to our executive leadership team that we've done this and it's done really well for our business?
Yeah, that's interesting. If I'm looking for a vendor, I'm going into that conversation knowing what's important to me, knowing how I want to define success, which sounds like a simple thing, but honestly, being on the other side of it, we've seen it where some companies just like, oh, I don't know, we just kind of need a wellness program, and it's like, okay, well, we can help you work towards those goals if you want, but it's better to go into there with the understanding of what defines success for you, and then task the vendor to show that in other clients they've been able to achieve that level of success.
All right. Next thing. So you talked about a lot of different things within the organization. It's also incredibly important to understand what types of organizations that vendor has supported in the past, and did it look, sound, and feel like your organization? And what I mean by that is, your people. So are your people going to respond to Tim's special K over there, the kettlebells and kale? Or they can respond more to mental health, or they can respond more to emotional well-being? What is it that they really need? Either through assessing them through a health risk assessment or a lifestyle questionnaire, like something to understand, or just a survey. And then evaluating how that vendor you're thinking about will satisfy those needs.
Yeah, and I think too, there's a level of, you know, teaming up with your employees to make that decision, right? And I'm guessing of all the answers the employees are going to give, most of it is included in your typical wellness solution, right? They're going to be looking for help with, you know, fill in the blank topic. It's mostly things we've already seen. So, but it does get a lot of buy-in from the employees if they're even part of the decision making process.
All right. What am I? I wouldn't call it I'm a meme guy. You know this, Tim. I love to drop
Yes.
my memes. I want to say this is my favorite meme of all time, but it's definitely a great meme where it's Steve Buscemi with the
Mhm.
skateboard. Do you know
Mhm.
where I'm going with this? And he's like, "How do you do, fellow kids?" So that's the lead in to the next question: is how diverse is your organization from an employee perspective? Age, of course, we're talking about gender and others, but age is incredibly important. Gen Z, Gen X, millennials for some of us, baby boomers for others, wherever you might be in that spectrum, all of them have different needs. And also, all of them want to have different types of modalities to be addressed by. So, if you really miss the mark and you're Steve Buscemi, hello, how do you do, fellow kids? You are really going to be going back to your employees saying, like, what the heck are these people doing? Why are we spending money on this thing that totally misses the mark for our representative workforce?
Yeah. How are you addressing each generation? And let's be honest too, each generation, how they consume information, education, and apply it to their life, they're not always exactly correct with how they're doing that, right? They need to have those simple tools to help them, you know, even like we're seeing attention spans are decreasing by the minute. It doesn't mean that we need to make every video, you know, half a second long. You know, there's parts here too that are understanding the differences of each generation, how to address the differences, but also how to acknowledge some ways that they're consuming information and education that might politely and respectfully need a little course correction to get them to achieve their goals.
I mean, no one is ever sure. It's like the Steve Jobs, like they don't know until they know kind of thing. Ultimately, I think you can make a really refined guess. You can do an intelligent strategy deploy towards the types of employees that you're servicing. But this one I see often is some of these solutions are just meant for just entirely the wrong demographic. They totally miss the mark. And you still will get some participation, but if you're trying to make a big difference, you have to be really conscientious of, does it resonate for my group of employees? So if you're talking to a vendor and they're pitching you and you're like, this is great, but maybe you're 10 years older than your average employee, you probably want to bring a couple employees into that conversation to let them evaluate that solution, because you don't want to send them over something that feels really good for you as an N of one, but misses the mark for what your employees are really looking for.
Yeah, that's where you have to acknowledge the idea of segmentation and the impact of being able to address different age groups. But you also have to then go probably another level deeper there and say, is every age group going to have the same preference? Like, is every millennial going to prefer the same? Of course not. That's ridiculous. And I've always found it interesting when you have when people are segmented by chronic condition. Like every
Mm-hmm.
diabetic is going to have exactly the same preferences, the same things that they want to do, and it's like that makes no sense. And so I think there's deeper levels to it. And I know you weren't saying it was just age, but I think that I think the point here is you need to make sure you have a vendor who's thinking of these things and not just trying to give a cookie cutter solution because it won't work.
Yeah. I mean, age, gender could be whether you like the Mets or the Yankees. So this is like a clear divide line between the business, Yankees versus Mets. Luckily, it's not like Giants versus Eagles or something. That would be probably would break this relationship into
That'd be
two.
worse.
It would be worse. No, Yankees versus Red Sox for me as a Yankees fan, that would be way
Yeah,
worse.
yeah, it would be like the Phillies for me.
Yeah. Or like at least I'm happy you're a Knicks fan, so that's also good. So it's not like we have to
Exactly.
root against each other.
There's something there.
All right. So next thing, this is obvious, but I just sometimes it's best to state the obvious. Is this solution intended to be a digital solution, or is it intended to be a in-person solution? Those are very different characteristics of a vendor that you need. And we oftentimes get brought into both of those scenarios. And it's like the right brain versus left brain of thinking, how do we want to effectively engage the representative population of people? Because if they're 500 or 1,000 miles away from your corporate location and they're sitting in there, probably like Tim and I are right now, wearing shorts with our fancy t-shirts and maybe slippers for me and, some high top Nikes for Tim.
Mm-hmm.
That's very different than both he and I going into the office and wearing a button down shirt and sitting by the water cooler. The needs of us taking advantage of these programs are dramatically different. So you got to make sure you understand, does that vendor satisfy the needs of your workforce? And do they have success with those types of deployments?
Yeah, it goes back to the first point about, we were talking about prospective clients, where one of the most difficult questions I ever have to answer is, how much does your health coaching cost? Because it's like, well, there's so many different variabilities to that, based on a budget, based on, what the needs are, based on what your population is, how intense is the coaching going to be, or is it going to be more of, motivational and message based. And I think there's a lot there is predicated by budget. Also a lot there is predicated by having a seamless kind of solution as well. We've seen it a lot where an employer will, okay, this is what we feel is the best in class technology, and this is the best in class coaching. And then it's just this fragmented system that has no cohesiveness to it. And the employees feel a little, I don't know where to go right now, or who to ask. So I would just say, budget's probably the most important thing here, because, most vendors who have technology and coaching can kind of, work within a budget to say what you can get for that. But also identifying what those needs are of the employees, and how, if live coaching is warranted, because we've seen situations too where it's very engaged populations. They're asking for coaching just because they went to the last wellness conference and that's the thing to ask for. And I always feel like a coach involved could increase engagement, of course, but sometimes that's not even needed. And so again, it's just back to, what are the true needs and engagement of your employee base.
Yeah, let's riff on that for a second, because I think that you brought up coaching, and I've brought up health coaching a bunch of times. So now I'll put you on the spot on this one. A lot of people don't even know what the hell health coaching is. I mean, just you and I always talk about the idea of coaching, like the greatest athletes in the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Tom Brady's. They all have had coaches to help them achieve that peak performance. But what does a health coach do, and what should an organization expect if they were to work with health coaches?
Yeah, so a health coach is a subject matter expert in behavior change. And so really their job is to work with an individual to identify really what the goal is that they'd like to accomplish, and to help them overcome all barriers in order to accomplish that, and really put them in a position to better accomplish those goals. So a health coach is truly centered around that behavior change specialty. Now, they may have knowledge and or expertise in other areas of health and wellness, like a fitness background or a nutrition background, but the defining phrase of a health coach is that anchored of behavior change. And if you go back to, we said great coaches, we're talking athletics there. Now, that's not a health coach, but there's a huge kind of parallel to a coach of a football team, where there's 52, 53 players on a team. They all have different attitudes. They all have different behaviors. They all have different levels of ambition. And that coach, with all these different personalities, is tasked with getting each one to perform at the highest level that they can. And so that's where that commonality, I believe, of the term coaches, this is just applied to health behaviors, and again, centered around that behavior change.
Yeah, I mean, and health coaching has been around for decades. I mean, you and I have been doing this for over a decade now. We were doing health coaching since that time. But in 2016, it kind of became more formalized with the NBHWC, and the medical board of examiners came together to create a unified code of ethics, education, research, and credentials to standardize the training. So some coaches are kind of board certified health coaches. They go through this extensive process and they go and sit for the boards, and they need to pass a test to be certified as being a certified health coach. So MBHWC is another thing you want to potentially look at if you want those types of coaches. There's many other credentialing agencies, but this is the one, especially here in the United States, that is kind of the gold standard, arguably, for health coaches going through from a clinical perspective standpoint.
Yeah, that was a big deal with the MBHWC. They, just to bring a level of consistency to not only the market, but just to let employers know that there's you know the health coach is on the level of other practitioners, in my opinion. And this kind of was the first step towards that, where there's a passing of the boards. There's a minimum level of expectation for what you need to be a board certified coach. And so really it gives a level of consistency for, us who employs coaches, where we know, so if a coach is board certified, not that there aren't great coaches who are board certified, but it does definitely give us a level of confidence in what they've accomplished up into that.
Yeah, as you said, it's like the evaluation of the capabilities and skill sets that they have to make an impact immediately. But as Tim brought up, I mean, we have staff that are non-board certified coaches that are phenomenal. We have staff that are board certified coaches that are phenomenal. Ultimately, it's that person that's going to do everything that Tim brought up, which is making a big impact, understanding where someone is, are they ready for change or not ready for change, how to coach and guide them along the representative resources that you have within your organization so that employee takes full advantage of them and ultimately gets to the health goals that they define around their own wellness vision, other things that are really incredibly important for them. Exactly. But that's definitely another good way to help you understand and ask those questions when you're in the room with that vendor. Are your coaches board certified or not board certified? Mm-hmm. Why or why not? Like, these are the questions that I don't think would make anyone squirm if they've been there and done that and they have an expertise and they understand this. But if they're coming in there and can't have a really concrete answer for you on that topic, if you're looking for having someone health coach your organization, I think that's probably the wrong vendor for you to choose then.
Great. Going back to the MBHWC, they define coaches as behavior change agents, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's like a cool kind of encompassing term for how you see a health coach. Is they're literally these agents of change, which I think is awesome.
Nice. I was on YouTube the other day and just looking for something, and I watched like one of those old Jason Bourne clips, and now literally my YouTube channel is like loaded with Jason Bourne clips. Right. I'm like, it's crazy. I mean, he's an agent of change right now. But now I have to I don't want to watch any more Jason Bourne stuff, even though like every 3 minutes of the Jason Bourne cut that they give me, it's great. But I'm like, no more Jason Bourne on YouTube. No more, please.
No more, please. No YouTube's more. Listening.
Yeah, exactly. We're always listening. All right. One of the last questions that tied together with something we brought up before was around how are you going to define success? We talked about that, some areas and some questions. But in addition to that question, one thing that is often overlooked in the wrap up of this conversation with a vendor is what types of reporting will they give you? And I think that's important because how you justify this spend to your organization. So what are the metrics that you're going to need to track to say that this program is working or that this program is justifiable for the continued expense needs to be matched with what the vendor can provide you. So every vendor you talk to, they're going to show you a dashboard that's going to be really cool with pie charts of things going. We're guilty as charged. We do that as well. But when you get down to the really specifics of it, I want to track these 10 or 5 things and show me how you tracked it within your product. And if they can't do that, will you include those reports as part of this contract? Like, that's really getting next level on it. And that will show you how capable your vendor is or how adaptable they might be as well, because they may offer to do these reports for you, or they may say that is an additional charge. We don't provide that for you. So there's different ways to consider that topic as well.
I don't have much to add to that. The only thing I would say, except for...
My intention was just to filibuster, Tim. I was just going to keep going. And then you're going to be like, yes, I move on. So
I think I had a good point. Oh, no, I know what it was. Taking that just one next level, though, yes, this is what's important to us. Show us how you're tracking that, but also show us how if we're underperforming in the program, what is the steps to course, or what are the steps to course correct that, so that we can start to get these numbers? Do we have support? Like, we see it all the time where, you'll think there'll be a huge onboarding, and then it doesn't get really the level that the client wanted, or was hoping for. Okay, well, we're not just telling you, sorry, you already signed on the dotted line. We're going to give you steps to either put out more automations, more marketing, more, we're going to coach you through that. That's a very important part to this, because this is never going to be this straight line trajectory. I remember one of our first clients told us that they actually signed up with us because we were honest to them about how hard it was to get people to sign up for the program, but they knew we were going to be in it with them because we understood the complexity to it. And so just, make sure I would push a vendor to really understand how they're going to work with us throughout this process.
Yeah. Today and tomorrow and in the future. I mean, we always talk about, you do the great analogy is that you today is very different than you in the winter, which is very different than you at this period of time. Like, people go through these ebbs and flows of what's important to them at that moment, and what are the health needs that they have, or what is the time availability that they have. Are they really open to learning and understanding? And just like you in your business, you need to make sure that partner is adaptable to what your concerns are going to be. And do they get you? I mean, do you want to have a little fun with them as well? Like, I mean, part of this is too, it's we're trying to give you some education and awareness and help you make the right decisions. But wouldn't you like to spend money and work with people that you like and you enjoy conversations with? So can you have a conversation? Can you laugh with that vendor or partner? Because at some point, something is going to go wrong. Tim and I have known this. We've done a great job, and we live and breathe for our clients. But things always break. Something happens. Someone is going to be unhappy with what we do or what your vendor does or something that you do. This is always the case. And will your partner come to the table, acknowledge responsibility if maybe something were to have gone wrong and it was really their mistake? Or are they just going to work with you on how to solve it effectively?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, is this program something that the employees on their own would pay for and value to the point that they would pay for it, and recognize that, wow, this is something I would pay for on my own and my employer's covering for us. That should be the response to a wellness program, not, oh, I got to do this for, some reason. And that's really always been our North Star personally, which is, we want to just create something that the member or the user or the employer or the employee, I'm sorry, ultimately values.
Yeah. Yeah. I read a stat. I was just trying to find it now. So don't hold me accountable to the citation this, but there was a stat that I read recently that said 70% of employees believe that they can get healthier on their own. So it's like they believe they can get healthier on their own. They're probably either going to a gym or watching some YouTube videos or maybe getting some nutritional supplements. Like, they're doing something, they believe they can do it, and they're inevitably spending some of their own hard-earned dollars doing that. But when you throw in company-sponsored wellness program, it's like, "Well, I'm not going to do that," because it just so misses the mark for what the heck they care about. If you told Tim and I, like, hey, we're going to send you a nutritionist to your house, a personal trainer and a chef, or we're going to do this, I will gladly sign up for that all day long because it has a lot of value for me. But oftentimes, like, if it comes down from the company, it just feels like you missed the mark because you're giving them something the employees don't care about. And of course, they're not going to participate if they don't care about it. They're not going to be willing to stack more time against something else that's not part of their job responsibilities. It's just a nice to have, and it doesn't hit the mark for what their needs are.
It's the tough part of wellness. Wellness is this all-encompassing term, but the things that encompass that term need to almost be marketed and promoted separately, right? Like, exactly like you said, like, if company sponsored employee wellness program, okay, maybe I'll participate in that. Let's give you fitness support or nutrition support or sleep support. That's a little more personal and probably more connected to my personal goals. So I agree. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think we've done the big ones. I'll throw one bonus one out there, Tim, and if you have any other that you think that everyone should consider, I would ask them around security and compliance. I mean, if you're going to do a digital solution, even in person, do they understand what a BAA is? Are they using HIPAA and GDPR to ensure that your data is safe? What redundancies do they have in place to protect you? What types of insurance policies do they have to protect you if, God forbid, something were to go wrong? That's also great questions to ask.
Yeah, I think security compliance, and also how are you positioning this program to make the employees feel safe, that everything's private, that it's not getting back to their boss. I mean, like where these personalized things that they're working on are not being, viewed across a ticker in the leadership team's boardroom. Like that's always been a concern. And we've met with so many employees who are like, I don't know, like, is my boss watching this? I mean, that needs to be clearly communicated to everybody. Like you are in a safe and secure and confidential place.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to leave you with is most of the people that pitch you, they're going to look perfect on paper. You're going to give them that big old RFP with 150 questions. They're going to answer it perfectly by using AI. They're not even going to write it. They're going to look perfect on paper. But in practice, most of these solutions fall short. So don't focus necessarily on the features. Focus on the outcomes. Focus on the people you're sitting across from. And ultimately, you should find the best vendor to support your specific needs of your organization.
Yeah, technology is great. Technology needs to be delivered by a team of experts who actually care about the outcomes of your organization. If it's without those two, there's not going to be any success.
Anything else, Tim, you think that we might have missed?
I think we're good. Yeah.
So leave with, what do we want to leave them with? Anything? Yeah, I'm going to do a shameless plug for the businesses Tim did before. Yes. If you are looking for a wellness solution without the cost, complexity, or bloatness of traditional wellness programs, you should give us a shot. See what we're doing and see if we could be a good fit for your specific needs.
It's not shameless. I am never not trying to not sell my product.
So would we say a prideful plug?
Yeah, shameless is a good word. It's like the word you say that's, hey, let me act like I'm not trying to do it to make it a little funny, which is what I said as well.
It's like the humble brag. I'm so busy doing all these great things. I just came back from the islands on my yacht, my private jet. It was, all those things don't exist for me, by the way, everyone. But I'm just saying, that's the shameless. That's the humble brag. I'm sorry, the humble brag.
Glad you put that disclaimer. We'd have some comments from.
I know, that's exactly. Well, this may infuse the sort of engagement, audience engagement that we need to drive eyeballs, Tim. Sure, or this may get all cut out.
I don't think we annoyed anybody, Clark.
Yeah, disappointingly. All right, so wrap it. Good chat with y'all.